With the upcoming ban list for the One Piece card game looming in the back of everyone's mind, we're in an awkward spot right now where making tier lists or making predictions on what will or won't be banned kind of isn't very fruitful for anyone, because at the end of the day, once we get the information, then we can go from there. Especially making deck lists, it's a little bit awkward right now because we don't really know what we'll have in our arsenal for cards to choose from. At the same time, the OP-12 set isn't very exciting as far as power level goes. It feels like there's a few pieces of support, but not really anything that will be bomb worthy or change the meta overall. With that all in mind, I do think that there are a handful of cards that are going to be very important for the OP-12 meta, but not only for that meta, but future metas to come. So therefore, I wanted to make this video because I feel like those cards that we're going to go over are pretty safe from the ban list. Watch all 5 of them get banned. But all jokes aside, I do think that these cards are worth your attention and will be pretty good ingredients to cook with in a bunch of different decks. But before we go over that list, please make sure to sub and like the video if you haven't already. It helps out the channel so much. Thank you all for the support. Additionally, if you'd like to talk about the One Piece card game outside of the YouTube comments, make sure to join the Discord community. The link for that is in the description below. So once again, as a reminder, these 5 cards are not necessarily the strongest cards to come out of the set. I think that a lot of the SRs are probably going to take that spot. But the whole point of listing these cards out are I think these will be staples or meta changers, or at least cards that you're going to see very often in certain deck lists from here on out. Starting off at number 5, we have the 2-cost blocker Cushiro in green. It is a 1k counter, also has 1000 power. If your slash attribute characters with a cost of 5 or less other than this character would be KO'd by your opponent's effect, you may rest this character instead. Has blocker on it, which is a very nice text here. And if you have multiple on the field, they actually protect themselves, which is very interesting. Now, the reason I think this is a real player in the current meta is because it protects a couple of very key pieces for green decks. Those pieces being the 5-cost Cavendish and the 5-cost Smoker. Both of those cards are slash attributes and therefore will be protected from being KO'd by this blocker. You also have other forms of protection in green also, with the 2-cost Rosinante blocker and then also the 3-cost Tashigi 2k counter. So with the culmination of all of these protection characters, a lot of your board will be very safe when you're playing green. Not only that, it doesn't necessarily restrict itself to just green, so you can splash this in other decks that have green in them. And on top of that, if your opponent is reducing a slash attribute character below 5, if it is above 5 to begin with, it will then be protected if that is being KO'd. So a couple of things here with Cushiro is pretty important to note. I think that this will be a staple for a lot of green decks, starting with OP-12, but then on out, depending on the deck list, of course, you'll probably see it at least a 2 of, if not a playset. Now, in the same vein of protecting your board, we have the 2-cost Shiroshi in yellow. Yes, she's a 0 power character and doesn't have blocker. She is a 1k counter at least, but what's important to note here is that it says if your character with a base cost of 6 or less would be removed from the field by your opponent's effect, you may turn 1 card from the top of your life cards face up instead. There's a secondary part to this clause, which I'll go over right now, but I don't think is super important for the vast majority of decks. On the opponent's turn, if you have no other Shiroshi with a base cost of 2, all your Neptunian characters gain plus 2000 power. This is more specifically for the Shiroshi deck, so I definitely think this will be a great player for that deck and make Shiroshi, green-yellow Shiroshi, a viable leader in OP-12, obviously depending on the bans. But I think the important thing here is the Shiroshi is very splashable in a bunch of different decks outside of just Shiroshi leader. If you look at Kalgara, a lot of his characters are 6 cost and below, and Shiroshi will be able to protect those characters by just flipping a life face up. So a lot of his board is going to be able to stick. And with Kalgara's leader ability being able to take the top life, the life you flipped up is now going to be in your hand, and you can flip up another life the next turn to use this effect again. Kalgara isn't the only leader to benefit from this specific card. We have Vegapunk, which is also a leader which runs a lot of 5-cost characters and below, so Shiroshi will be able to protect Vegapunk's board as well. And with Vegapunk's leader ability being able to add life to the top of his life, you can just use that life that you've added to flip up. It doesn't matter if your opponent sees what it is, they're going to be seeing it anyway if they hit your life, because you're going to be probably putting triggers in life anyway. So this Shiroshi has a lot of purpose in many different decks, and once again, the same thing with the Cushiro blocker. This card doesn't have to necessarily be in like mono yellow leaders. It can be ran in anything that splashes yellow. You could also run this in blue, yellow, ace, because a lot of his characters are going to be 5 cost and below. So there's a lot of different ways to cook with this specific card. At number 3, I have the new blocker Shanks, which is a 4 cost, 6,000 power blocker that says on your opponent's attack, once per turn, you may trash 1 card from your hand. Give up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards minus 2,000 power during this turn. So as you can see, this is going to be quite the menace in the Shanks deck, because with Shanks' leader ability being able to minus 1,000 to a single attack, and then you have this as well to minus 2,000 power, it becomes very tricky to do a lot of battle math when this sticks on the field. Not only that, this can also attack very easily because it hits for 6. So if you are in a mirror, you can hit for 6 pretty easily, of course. And on top of this, like the other cards we've talked about so far, this can be splashed in different decks. It's not leader locked, it's not type locked. You can have this card in a whole slew of different decks, so there's lots of ways to cook with it. I think what's really nice here is you're able to just pitch out dead cards. You'd never have to worry about being counterless with this card on the field. Yes, it doesn't have counter itself, but that doesn't matter because once you put it on the field, then you start getting immediate value. And as a result, I think this card will see initial play and pretty much just Shanks alone, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of red decks pop up over time over the next couple of sets, and this card is in those deck lists. At number 2, I have a whole novel to read for you. It's the Demon Aura 9 Sword Style Asura Blades Drawn Dead Man's Game. We're Yu-Gi-Oh now, lads. This is a 1 cost event that says, main, you may rest 3 of your Dawn cards, rest up to a total of 2 of your opponent's characters or Dawn cards. That is super impactful for a lot of decks here. I think that this is going to probably almost be considered ban-worthy. I know that a lot of people right now are talking about Hody Jones being banned. This is Hody Jones on a stick. And on top of that, it has a counter being able to give your leader plus 3,000 during a battle. So it has dual purposes here. If you don't use it to go for game or trade into the board, you can use it for protection. So that's very nice here. What's going to be really difficult with this card is now green has multiple ways to go for lethal. As I mentioned, Hody Jones right now is on the chopping block, at least for Twitter discourse, to talk about what cards are going to be banned. And although I don't think Hody Jones is necessarily ban-worthy, I definitely think it's a very, very powerful card. And having 2 Hody Jones, or at least 2 playsets of Hody Jones in a deck potentially, is really scary. When you ask your opponent, do you have Hody Jones? They're always going to have it, of course. And now they're going to definitely have it if they have a playset of this card as well. I think this card will make a lot of green decks very scary, especially considering there's protection for their board, and now they can just rest your blockers, they can rest your Dawn. This card alone will make you reconsider how you should approach certain matchups, what you need to leave open, how many blockers you should put on the field. There's a lot more complexity to the game with this card added in it. To add on to that, this card is really perfect for decks like Green Purple Luffy that will be able to search it out since it is a Straw Hat type. One of the downsides to Green Purple Luffy is that you really couldn't run Hody Jones unless you were trying to go for game. You could run like maybe one of them. I know a lot of deck lists didn't run it at all, and many have opted to just cut it out altogether if they were running it in OP-11. But now you can just search it out really easily with all the searchers you have, and you can hold this in your hand for the entirety of the game and just poke your opponent down the entire time and then play this down once they've blockered up, and then really just push for lethal at that point. And like everything else we've talked about so far, it's splashable outside of just green. This is not leader locked. It's not type locked. As you can see, we have kind of a theme here. Cards that are going to be staples for decks aren't locked to anything besides maybe the color that they're in. So once again, this card is very powerful for all of those reasons and the flexibility that it has to really take over a game and cause your opponent to think differently. And in at number 1, this should be no surprise to anyone here, we have Bartholomew Kuma, a 6 cost 7,000 power character in yellow, has a 1k counter. It says on play, you may trash 1 card from your hand, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. Then this character gains +2 cost until the end of your opponent's next phase. And then on the opponent's turn, on KO, add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. This hands down should go into every yellow deck. Right now, I feel like it should go into every yellow deck. I'm probably going to get flamed for saying it should go into every yellow deck, but I don't see a reason why it shouldn't. All of the effects that you see on the card are just powerful. Being able to pitch a card to heal 1, then it protects itself from any kind of removal the next turn unless they're running like Red Rock. It's a 7k stat line. If your opponent decides to swing into it, you get to heal off of the KO ability. It has a counter on it. It does your taxes. It does everything you need it to do. This card is just incredible for what it is. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't want to run it into any yellow deck. And as a result, yellow, I think, came out on top for this set. That being said, overall, yellow still not a very strong color. But with Kuma in the mix, it definitely fills a really awkward spot for a lot of decks. I know a lot of yellow decks struggled finding a decent 6 cost to go into that slot. Usually they'd find like their best 5 cost and play it on 6. And more specifically, I'm thinking of Enel right now, because Enel never really had a good 6 cost character. Usually they'd have to run some kind of vanilla at some point or just forego the 6 cost spot altogether. But with Kuma, you can stabilize much earlier and prolong the game so that you can make it to more of your top end, whether you're playing Enel, whether you're playing like Queen or whatever it may be. This card is just that impactful, and it should, and I'll say this until my face goes blue, go into every yellow deck. I don't care what you're playing. I'm putting this in every yellow deck I'm trying out because I think that it's just that good. So there you have it. Those are 5 of the most anticipated and possibly most impactful cards that we'll get from OP-12 for our meta and then metas beyond. I think that all 5 of these cards could easily be staples in decks for the next couple of years. And so as a result, I would suggest getting playsets of them just in case. Usually cards that are rare or uncommon will not be super expensive, knock on wood, but cards like Kuma might be a little bit expensive to begin with and potentially could be skyrocketing in price over time depending on what we see printed in later sets. With that all being said, what cards are you looking forward to coming out in OP-12? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll have some OP-12 content soon. Once the ban list is revealed, then I'll start cooking with some deck lists. We'll have some decks to post on the channel, so make sure to subscribe for that. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next video.